I come in, sir?
Yes, come in.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Please be seated.
Thank you, sir.
Are you fully vaccinated?
Yes, sir.
No symptoms of COVID?
No, sir.
You may remove your mask.
Thank you, sir.
Apurv,
Yes, sir.
please introduce yourself to the board.
Sir, I'm Apurv Dikshit. I come from Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. Most of my schooling has been from Lucknow itself. I've done my graduation in mining machinery engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad. Post that, I've been preparing for civil services. Meanwhile, I also appeared for SSC CGL 2017, through which I managed to secure the position of GST inspector in Ministry of Finance.
Where are you working, Apurv?
Currently, I'm working in Itanagar.
You are working at ETA. Since when you have been working?
Sir, last year, I joined in February last year. Yes, in Sen.
So how do you like your job there?
Sir, it's good. It's very peaceful. It's very close to the nature. So I like it very much.
And your experience with the GST?
Sir, there have been certain issues. There are challenges in Northeast, but so far so good. I've been enjoying what I've been doing there.
Okay, you want to become a forest officer, Apurva.
Yes, sir.
Is there any specific reason for becoming a forest officer, or you are giving one of those competitions?
No, sir. So, sir, firstly, Indian Forest Service is an all-India service, which means it is equivalent to Indian Administrative Service and Indian Police Service. When I entered into the preparation, I did not know about the service. As I got into the preparation, I got to know about the service. I was inspired by certain people on Twitter who used to post a lot of things about Indian Forest Service, and that was one of the inspiration. And while reading more, I got to realize that Indian Forest Service also gives good opportunities in future. In deputation, it gives varied career opportunities, and lastly, but most importantly, it gives me chance to work close to the nature.
Apurva, you have studied from ISM Dhanbad.
Yes, sir.
There is a problem existing in Jharia Dhanbad belt.
Yes, sir.
With coal burning there for since long. So what are the reasons for that, and what could be the possible solution?
Sir, the prime reason because of which the coal is burning in Jharia for almost 100 years now, the main reason is because the coal belts, the coal seams, they are very rich, and also they are very close to the surface. There is very disparate, lot of coal seams which are illegally mined, which leaves coal seam very open to the surface, which leads to fire incidents in Jharia. And because that is constantly open, there is constant supply of coal, there is constant supply of oxygen as well. So that has been burning for almost 100 years now. As far as the solution is concerned, so the primary reason why this has not been stopped so far is because there are a lot of people living there. Government has taken several steps in terms of relocating those people, but eventually they come back to the same place because of lack of alternate livelihood opportunities there. So solution in the long run would be, while considering the rehabilitation of the people living there, they have to be provided adequate means of livelihood so that they can stay there, and then the entire scientific procedure through which those fires can be stopped, those open seams can be closed, then that can be applied. So that would be the solution, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Apurva, you like watching World War based movies and documentaries?
Yes, sir.
That's nice. So can you draw parallel between the war which is happening in Ukraine today and the events which led to Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor?
So in terms of parallel, like in both the world wars, it is said that one small incident triggers a spate of rivalries, and it triggers a spate of series of events that leads to the war. So the Pearl Harbor attack was a kind of miscalculation on the part of Japanese, hoping that they could use their assertions in war to get dominance over United States of America, but that was not to be. Here in the present case, Putin is almost betting on the same thing, that he could get away with the aggression, and he could keep USA out and it can get its own demand, can get its own upper hand, establish his own hegemony there. So that is one parallel that I feel is there.
Are you aware of the American expansion in the Pacific for last 50 years before that Pearl Harbor attack? That is since 1890s. America had been expanding. They took over Hawaii Island and Philippines and Indochina, and they were increasing their military presence in the South China Sea and the surrounding area, which is considered provocative by the Japanese diplomats. Are you aware of those events?
Yes, sir. So in terms of in terms of those parallels, like as you mentioned, sir, in the 19th century, USA was expanding in the Pacific. In the same way, in the current situation, we are seeing the expansion of NATO towards the Russian border. We are seeing there is a constant supply of war materials in countries like Ukraine itself. Earlier, there was this issue with Turkey itself. Turkey also, like USA wanted to place some of its weapons there, which caused apprehension in Russia, which ultimately caused Putin to take such a drastic step.
It has been experienced historically that troubled times are the best time to emerge as military leader. Do you see this as an opportunity for India to make a strong claim for permanent membership of Security Council by making an active participation in Ukrainian war?
Sir, I feel it is the time is right for expansion for reforms in Security Council, but I do not think that India should send its troops to the ground, or India should actively participate in the war itself. It should, as we have done so far, we should be fully behind establishing peace. We should be sending the humanitarian aid, which India is known for. But I do not think that we should be sending troops to the ground. But yes, it is a very good time for Security Council reform, as it is there for everybody to see that because of Russian veto, we are not. UN is almost helpless in taking any steps against Russia so far.
During the First World War as well as during the Second World War, Indian leadership always wanted that India should remain neutral, and they protested against participation of Indian army in the war. And the same policy 100 years down the line, we are having the same mindset, we are having the same line of thinking. Do you think we are not progressing in terms of war strategy thinking for centuries?
Sir, I feel 100 years back, maybe we were very limited in terms of what we could do. We were a British colony, and it was we could only have protested rather than take active part. But because of being British colony, we did actually send a lot of troops in World War I. But right now, sir, I do not believe. I think India has been the flag bearer of world peace, and I think that soft power is also just as important as in terms of war strategy or things like that. But I think India, being the flag bearer of peace, it should maintain its stature. It should maintain the reputation it gained while ensuring neutrality during the Cold War era. And I think we continue the same in Afghanistan as well. So I think this is one thing that has served India as well, because we could always keep a neutral stance. We could always deal with Russia and the US at the same time. So I think this active neutrality is very important for India.
EU is planning to impose a complete embargo on oil import and gas import from Russia. If that happens, the best opportunity for us to import liberally from Russia cheap oil and gas. But if we do, we'll be completely disaligning ourselves from the West. That will be very adventurous. We are at a crossroad. Which direction we should move?
So I think the current direction that our present leadership is taken is shows India's independence in terms of foreign policy, and this is, I believe, is the right step, because Russia has been our long-term partner. Russia has been the I would say the backbone of our defense industry. Russia has been a long-term ally, as well as we know in the present context, India being the largest democracy and the United States being the oldest democracy have a lot in common and have a lot of scope for strategic partnership in future. So I think we can balance between the two, just like we have done in the past, be it Cold War era, where we balance between USSR and USA, be it in Israel-Palestine, be it in Afghanistan. So I think India has always done well in terms of balancing its act. So I think we should continue to do so.
Since the new regime came to power in USA, our closeness to USA has reduced. And with the same time, there has been regime change in this Pakistan, and there is a growing terrorist act in Kashmir. Do you see any linkages between all these policy changes? As we are moving away from USA and moving closer to Russia, terrorist actions in Kashmir is growing, maybe with tacit support of ISI.
Sir, I'm not able to link the two. The reason for the I would say slight coldness in relations in between India and USA is primarily because I think when the Donald Trump regime was there, I think it was his proactive, it was more of a personal, I would say personal touch to it. There was more personal touch to the foreign policy, and that led to a lot more closeness between India and United States back then, unlike this present Biden regime. As far as the terrorist attack go in Pakistan and with the regime change, I think the earlier Imran...
In Kashmir, even yesterday, a high-level official was killed by terrorists, and terrorists were also killed. But in recent months, terrorist acts in Kashmir has been growing.
Sir, I think one of the reasons that I can think of why this has been happening is because during the Imran Khan regime, there was a lot of tussle between Imran Khan and the Pakistani army itself. And Pakistani army, we know, acts as deep state. Now with the current Sharif government, Pakistani army is again trying to re-emphasize its hegemony in Pakistan. Because whenever any terrorist action happens, the Pakistani army gets to the forefront. I think Pakistani army is trying to re-establish its hegemony in Pakistan itself.
Okay, thank you, Apurv.
Okay, Apurv, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Apurv, I can see that you actually studied mining engineering.
Yes, sir.
And now you want to become a forest service officer.
Yes, sir.
Kind of a traitor of a sort. I mean, mining is supposed to be everything anti-environmental. And now you suddenly want to become a conservator. Why this change of heart?
Sir, I don't think they are as antagonistic. I mean, as long we as developing nation will continue to mine, we will continue to need our resources for future. But I think both preserving the forest and mining the minerals at the same time is the future. And in that respect, me aspiring for Indian Forest Service would come in handy, because my knowledge...
That's more of a message to the nation kind of thing. You're not giving me the concrete thing. Can mining ever be environment friendly?
Yes, sir. I believe mining can be environment friendly. There would be certain negative impacts, but there can be steps, there can be solution where mining can be environment friendly.
Give me one example in the world where mining has resulted in a carbon negative thing.
Sir, I don't think...
you cannot, because there isn't.
So one of the things that can be done, the one example is available in India itself. There is an iron ore mine in Goa, wherein what they do is, in terms of, I mean, those are the steps through which mining activities...
You can reduce, but you cannot remove.
Certainly, the actual impact cannot be zero. That is not possible.
Anyway, you are in Arunachal Pradesh. You are a Forest Service aspirant. Tell me, what exactly is this DDBR? Dihang Dibang Biosphere Reserve.
Right, sir.
Why is it so important? It was in news.
So I'm not aware of the exact importance of it.
What it is? Where is it?
So Dihang Dibang Biosphere Reserve, it is in Arunachal Pradesh. It is in middle of Arunachal Pradesh. It also has a elephant corridor. There is Italian hydropower project that was to be established there. But I think that has been stopped. As far as I know, that has been stopped. It is
one of the biodiversity hotspots. What are biodiversity hotspots?
So biodiversity hotspots are the areas. This was the concept given by Norman Myers, and these are the areas which are very rich in biodiversity, but have faced a lot of threat in recent future and are on the verge of collapsing because of the threat itself.
Since you are in Arunachal Pradesh, you must have got this opportunity to visit a few important wildlife places in Arunachal. Can you name few?
So unfortunately, I have not been able to...
How many wildlife sanctuaries are there in Arunachal Pradesh?
Sir, I'm not aware of the actual number, but I can name a few national parks there, which is Namdapha National Park. There is Pakui Wildlife Sanctuary there. These are the two I can recall at the moment.
We were discussing this war thing. War is also very, very anti-environment by any imagination. Tell me, what exactly is the difference, environmentally speaking, if we use the plastic explosive in a war, or if we use the conventional explosive in a war? You got my question?
I got your question, but I'm not aware of it, sir.
Even otherwise, apart from the immediate smoke and all, what are the impact on environment when it comes to the explosions in war?
So the explosions can lead to, firstly, it leads to uprooting of trees. It leads to a lot of the soil being thrown apart. And also in wars, because there are large area is required, a lot of trees are cleared, and mostly they are in very strategic areas where there is a lot of dense forest is there to protect the nation itself. So a lot of trees have to be cleared for a mass movement of troops and all.
So that is the immediate thing.
Yes,
what
sir.
is the long-term impact?
So long-term impact is because a lot of resources are needed for the war itself, and most of the time the temporary structures have to be created. A lot of thing is done with the help of wood itself. So that in itself will lead to a lot of exploitation of resources.
Okay, thank you.
Apurv.
Yes, ma'am.
So continuing with your subject of mining, what is data mining?
Ma'am, data mining is a technique in which a huge set of data sets are mined for a particular purpose. For example, let's say if there is a kind of a political election that is going to happen. So data can be mined of those who are going to vote in the elections, and their behavioral and their various statistics can be used to manipulate the election itself. So that is data mining.
So what technology is used in it?
I'm not sure about it.
Algorithms?
Yes, ma'am. Definitely algorithms are used. There are a lot of supercomputers that work with large, huge data sets. Those are even currently the quantum computing is being used to mine data. So quantum computing, supercomputers, algorithms, these are used.
These are used. Geology was also one of the optionals.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you analyze your own state, UP, geologically?
So, ma'am, UP is, in terms of geologically, it is one of the youngest geological entity in India. So, the state of Uttar Pradesh is primarily, it comes in northern Ganga plain. So, once the collision of Indian plate happened with the Eurasian plate, and there was this rise of Himalaya had happened, because there was snowfall on the top of those mountains, and then the rivers started flowing. With the rivers, the small silt, sand, and clay particles, they made this entire northern plain, which is what UP constitute of. And there is this thing called foreland basin. UP is actually a foreland basin, whereas because of all the particles, all the alluvium that has collected there, it has, by the very weight itself, it has pushed down the very lithosphere, and that has led to a very stable, a very flat plain, very rich in alluvium, and which is why we are a good agriculture state.
And what about forest of UP? What is the forest cover of Uttar Pradesh?
So, ma'am, it is 6.8% forest cover, and about approximately 3% tree cover.
And what it should be?
Ma'am, as per the National Forest Policy 1988, 1/3 of the entire land is to be covered in trees, and we are currently very short of target.
Why so?
Ma'am, because we are primarily an agriculture state, we have huge population of 20 crores, and because of the human population pressure, and that forest cover has to be limited because there is a lot of agricultural land, there are a lot of towns and rural areas as well. So that is why.
Tell me, forest is considered to be a very environment friendly activity.
Yes, ma'am.
Or substance. While agriculture also is nearly, undertaking the same activities of photosynthesis and everything, still it's not considered very good for environment. Why?
Ma'am, this is primarily because the green cover, as far as agriculture is concerned, it's exactly not as much as the forest itself. Secondly, because of the wetland, because of lot of irrigation activities, there is in turn release of CO2. There is release of methane from the wetland itself. Also, because of the lot of fertilizers that are used, that are ultimately, along with the rain, they get runoff through the river itself. So they pollute the nearby environment. These are the reasons I can think of.
But they cannot be counted in green cover.
No, ma'am, they are not counted in green cover.
Okay. So my last question to you. You have lived both in Arunachal Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. Give me any two differences, cultural differences you have observed.
And firstly, in terms of food, Arunachal is very different from Uttar Pradesh. I come from a state where we are mostly wheat eating state, while Arunachal is a very rice eating state. In Uttar Pradesh, we have a lot of milk and dairy products. In Arunachal, milk is 100 rupees a liter. So that is one big cultural difference. And other than that, in terms of festival, here we have Holi, Diwali are the primary festival. There it is the Bihu festival, and even this Hornbill festival that happens in the month of February. Those are the two very important cultural events of Arunachal Pradesh.
Thank you, Apurv.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Have you heard about eco-stress?
No, ma'am.
It was in news in connection to NASA International Space Station.
Ma'am, I'm not aware about it.
Do you know what are urban heat islands?
Yes, ma'am.
What are they?
Ma'am, urban heat islands are the small area where there is a lot of heat that gets accumulated because of lot of concrete, because there is a lot of limited green cover there and lot of heat. There is a small area in which heat gets affected, particularly in urban areas, and around which, because of the green cover and open areas, there is slightly lesser temperature there. So that makes an island of heat in the ocean of relatively lesser heat.
Okay. So, which city was in news in connection to this phenomena?
Currently, Delhi itself is in news.
Okay. Any other city?
There are most of the cities in general are currently facing the heat island effect. Ahmedabad also is particularly in news because they have done a lot of good things in terms of managing this heat itself.
Okay. Have you read Biodiversity Act of 2002 and the recent amendments proposed in the amendment bill?
I know the Biodiversity Act of 2002, but I'm not aware of the recent amendments.
Proposed amendments, you're not aware? Okay, tell me the structure which is existing according to the 2002 law. What kind of structure?
So, ma'am, primarily there is three-tier structure is there. There is a National Biodiversity Board, then there is State Board of Biodiversity, and then there at the local level there is also a tier that I'm not aware of. I can't exactly recall the name of it. But
so what is the purpose of all these three tiers basically?
Then the primary purpose is, one of the purpose is to have a repository of all the biodiversity that we have in our country. Second, this biodiversity were previously also being used for what we call biopiracy, which we that biological knowledge of these communities, the local communities were being used.
So what was the provision made then in case if somebody wants to use any particular plant or any substance? What was the procedure? All the three tiers approval has to be taken?
Firstly, there is a biodiversity register that has to be created, so that basically all the knowledge has been repository at a single place. And I'm not aware of the procedure, how exactly it is prevented.
Okay. There were many, name two of the tiger reserves of Arunachal Pradesh, can you?
Can I take a minute to recall? One is Pakhui Tiger Reserve, that I'm sure of. I'm not sure there's a Namdapha Tiger Reserve, it is the Namdapha National Park, but because it has tigers, but I'm not sure if it is a tiger reserve or not.
Okay, and where do we define forest per se? Forest, where do we define it?
Ma'am, so currently there is no legal definition of forest that exists in our country. The state of forest report, it defines forest cover and forest area, but not forest per se.
Okay, so what is forest cover? What are the criteria to designate an area as forest?
So forest cover is any area which is more than 1 hectare in terms of area and has canopy density of more than 10%. So that is forest cover.
And what is the difference between forest cover and a tree cover?
So other than this forest cover, wherever there are trees which are but areas less than 1 hectare, and also where the canopy density is less than 10%, so that is tree cover.
Okay, and if there is plantation of bamboo or more than 10% in a 1 hectare area, would that be considered a forest?
But bamboo recently was in 2018, 17 or 18, it was recently not considered a tree, but I'm not sure if it is considered a forest so far. I'm not sure about it.
So if it's not considered a tree, how would that become a forest?
Ma'am, but that was the amendment in Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Sorry, in the Indian Forest Act 1927. That was the amendment there. And because the forest is not defined there, so I'm not sure legally if it is.
You're
free
sure
or
it
not.
has not been defined?
Forest? Yes, ma'am. I'm sure forest is not defined.
Okay, and what about oil palm then? If there is a plantation of oil palm more than 10% in an hectare area, would that be considered as a forest?
I'm not sure about it, ma'am.
Not sure. Okay, so tell me, what are the 4 slabs of GST?
Currently, 5%, 12%, 18%, 27%.
Okay, and if I ask which one of these slabs there's the highest collection of taxes, in which of these slabs?
Mainly in 12% and 18%.
My last question to you, what are some lacunas in the existing structure, and what suggestions would you give to bridge those lacunas in GST?
Presently, 2 lacunas that are there to be seen is the GST was supposed to simplify the tax itself in the country. Earlier there were lot many taxes. It has done to a certain extent, but still there are 4 tiers that are there, which is also a necessity to a certain extent. But also we can rationalize these tiers in future.
How? You want one tax rate for every good?
Ma'am, I don't think at least immediately we can have one tax rate for everyone, because that would impact the poor community in our country. But we can certainly merge this 12% and 18%. We can somewhere reach in between these two particular tax slabs.
Okay.
And the other issue is again currently electricity, alcohol, petroleum. These are outside the GST, which in itself which is again a necessity at the moment because of the revenues that are needed. But in the long run, I think these things also should be in the GST itself.
Okay, and what about working of GST Council? You're happy with it?
Certainly,
Its
ma'am.
composition, the meetings, and the way they handle things?
In terms of composition, ma'am, I think the composition and the voting powers, that is right. But I think there is a lot of politicization that has happened with the GST Council, with the ruling regime and the other states. So there is a lot of politicization that has taken place. But I think in terms of composition, in terms of voting power, I think it is not an issue.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Apurva, let us discuss GST again. So, what is input credit under GST and how it is claimed?
So basically, input tax credit is what GST is basically a consumer-based tax. So when a particular vendor gets a GST good, he pays taxes for the input also, and then while selling also he pays taxes. That is double taxation. To remove this thing, the input tax credit was ensured so that he can be paid the input tax credit, the tax that he paid while paying the source itself, that can be given back to him, so that he is taxed just once.
Why such a huge fraud has taken place in the area of input tax credit?
So this is mainly with respect to fake invoicing. I mean, there is again, because GST law has been brought on, but people are still not aware of a lot of things. There is a lot of input, there is a lot of fake invoicing that takes place, wherein the goods sold there is large number of goods sold, but the invoicing is of a very little part.
What action the department has taken in the recent past?
So particularly in Arunachal Pradesh, once we catch anybody
at the national level?
So I didn't get the question.
What action has been taken by the department at the national level to plug this fraud or loopholes? Any idea?
No, sir.
You are not aware of that. Explain to me the difference between IGST, SGST and CGST.
So any goods that remains within the state itself, the trading within the state, that the tax on that is SGST. There is also a CGST charge on that also. So there is SGST and CGST on those goods. With respect to the goods that are in between the two states, there is IGST, for which it is again divided between the center state and
who collects the IGST?
So I'm not totally sure about it, but I think it is the state government that collects it.
Okay. Have you heard of UTGST also?
No, sir, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, thank you, Apur. Your interview is over. You may go now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Sit up. So your interview dates are yet to be announced.
Yes, sir. They are yet to be announced.
And when likely to be held?
13 to 17 June.
13th. So a lot of time is there.
Yes, sir.
So last year also you had appeared for the.
So last year I had appeared for civil services interview.
Okay. And this year you didn't take the examination.
Yes, I did not sit in the civil services examination.
Okay. Okay. This is your which attempt is for you for this forest service?
Third attempt.
Third attempt. Okay. Apurvi, how was your experience? Let me first hear from you.
So it was good. I felt very comfortable here. In terms of lacunas, I particularly faced, I had studied too much of UP and less of Arunachal Pradesh. So that was one deficit I could find, but it was very comfortable. It was very pleasant here.
No, you are an excellent candidate. Absolutely no problem. Excellent in your communication skill. Excellent in your articulation of ideas. So no issues, and with a very positive body language, with all sincerity, and so those attributes of a civil servant are there in you. So not an issue. How much marks, by the way, did you get year before last in the civil services?
So very poor, 151.
What went wrong?
Sir, a couple of things. Mine was first interview after COVID. So with the mask and shield, I was very hassled. I could hardly breathe. And my first word that I uttered in the interview is I can't breathe. That was my first words in the board itself. So one of the issue was that. Second, sir, I appeared in interview in July 2020, while the last time I studied the basic subject was in October 2019 since mains. So I thought I had lost touch with the subject, and they were very, very basic questions that I should have answered and I could not answer. So basically a lot of confidence.
Anyway, let bygone be bygone.
Yes, sir.
You must regain your confidence back. You are a wonderful candidate.
Thank you,
And whatever questions you have asked, you attempted very well, those questions. So not much of an advice from our side. Only thing is, as because you are already working in the Ministry of Finance, so a lot of questions you should expect in your area of working.
Yes,
and it should not be confined to your working in Arunachal Pradesh. You have to see the larger picture also of the working. So GST Council, you should clearly understand all the intricacies of the GST Council. That is very important. And you yourself said that petroleum, electricity and all that is not in the ambit. It should be brought. And why it is not in the ambit? Such questions may be asked. And your area of work will be particularly maybe the focus area of discussion. So because there hardly industrial activity is not much in that area.
Yes, sir.
So how much you contribute to the total kitty of the government? So, and what is the total kitty of the government? What improvements can you suggest? Isn't it? It's like your input credit is one such thing which is under intense discussion in the department. So you should understand that. And important small things like IGST and all that, these should be at the tip of your tongue.
Right, sir.
Then you are applying for the forest service, trying to become a forest officer. Arunachal is very rich in natural resources and forest. So, and comparison between Arunachal and UP.
Right, sir.
So, and the national picture, various acts and all that, that you should,
Right, sir.
whatever time, lot of time is there. So, these two focus areas, you should make in-depth and intense study. Other areas, your general awareness, what is happening in the country, around the world and all that, keep a tab on that. Otherwise, you will do pretty well.
Okay.
Anything from your side, anything you want to ask?
So particularly with respect to job, I just wanted to know, because it would be my first interview after the job, exactly should I prepare a whole, bird's eye view of my job or the nitty-gritties exactly?
Bird's eye view of the departmental working, but nitty-gritty of your personal working.
Okay.
There are two things. Bird's eye view of both. Because you have been working for almost 1 year, isn't it? More than 1 year.
Yes, sir.
So by now there is no escape for you.
Right, sir.
But to understand the nitty-gritty, somebody, and this is one issue which is known to everybody.
Right, sir.
So prepare intensely on that. That is my assessment, that you will be spending a lot of time explaining nitty-gritty of departmental working.
Yes, sir.
And forest also, obviously. It goes without saying. The forest is a big area. And apart from this, your the government has been going for PPP mode in a big way. All big ticket projects are there under the PPP mode. So what is your social impact assessment? What is environmental impact assessment? How does it affect the forest? how does it affect the flora, fauna, all that. Just bird's eye view.
Yes,
You are not expected to have an in-depth knowledge, just bird's eye view of that. And you will be doing pretty well.
And also political aspect of Arunachal as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, sir.
That is entirely a different area, but you may be asked.
Right.
Because that is a very tricky situation there. Okay, all the best.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.